All right, guys. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos. We're broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. Today, we're covering the Karen Reed case. Karen Reed is a 44-year-old financial analyst from Mansfield, Massachusetts, who is standing trial for allegedly hitting and killing her boyfriend, former Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with their SUV during a snowstorm in January of 2022. Right now, the argument is, did Karen Reed get drunk, get in an argument with John O'Keefe, maybe accidentally, but whatever. It's possible that she ran him over. That's what she's being accused of. Those are the accusations. She backed into him, ran him over, and the wounds on his arm were consistent with that. But it also looks like it could be dog bites. But remember, that's what defense attorneys do, right? They look for a defense for you. They put all the information down on a table and they look at all and say, "Hey, how can we a different right?" Kind of like the Delphi case. They took all the discovery and they tried to formulate some kind of an argument to defend their client. Right now, this is what they're working with. They knew that there was a German Shepherd at that home, so they're creating some doubt by saying these are not caused by uh, broken plastic fragments from a broken taillight, but instead, John O'Keefe was in an altercation, attacked by a dog, and then maybe kicked out of the home where he fell or he was thrown out of the home. So they do have an uphill battle. We're going to watch a video from an expert. What was the word? This is going to be the word of the day. Pathognomonic. Pathognomonic. They're going to use this word a lot. They're basically saying they can look at these marks and say they're nothing but bites. They can't be anything else. That's what the word means, apparently. That we're showing signs that lead down one trail, and that's to a dog bite. Nothing else could have caused this. I believe that's the meaning of the word. But before we start this video, we'll start a quick chat here. True Crime Housewife, welcome in. GP, how you doing? Yeah, I forgot to put in the ribs. They take 3 hours to slow cook. That's how I cook my ribs. Sometimes I'll put them on the grill and caramelize the barbecue sauce. But I think today we're just going to put them in the grill or in the oven for 3 hours. I almost forgot. I took a shower and was all excited to go live. And then I was like, oh, shit. Because my wife wasn't here to remind me she's dropping my daughter off at her boyfriend's soccer game. So good to see you, GP. Jerry Mayo, thank you for the Cash App earlier today. That was very thoughtful of you. Thank you for supporting my channel. Remember, guys, we're 100% crowdfunded. We're looking to do podcasting full time. We haven't completely made that leap, but we're hoping to. We're going to be very busy in 2025. That's instead of me just having these ideas and talking about them in the Discord or leaving comments here and there, we're just going to chop it up here on the channel. And we're going to do a lot of streaming in 2025. So what's up, Scott? Good to see you. Hello. Karen Reed is definitely guilty. She's got the exact same name as my psycho ex. Yeah, we've all got one. We've all got a psycho ex. That's why they're probably our ex, right? Julia, what's up? How you doing? Que pasa? Yeah, I appreciate that, Jerry. That was very thoughtful. Very generous of you. Okay, so that's the argument right now. Are we looking at dog bites, markings from the teeth of a dog? That's the argument. I don't know. I'm not convinced. I think they look very consistent with the fragments of a broken tail light. That's what I'm seeing on his arm. That's what it looks like to me. Let's pull up the actual photo. I just didn't want to get flagged by YouTube too bad by showing those gruesome photographs. But we're going to watch a video. It's about an hour long. It's a testimony of an expert who swears that this is a dog bite. Matter of fact, she uses the word pathognomonic, which means it can be nothing but dog bites. What do you guys have to say about that? So here I put up a few examples that we can use as tools. And we'll look at these. I made these for my own purposes. Let me put these up on the screen for you. So where the tail light is and where his arm is located, I mean, they match right up, right? And you can see all these fragments here. This is how they found the vehicle. They kind of pieced it together. You can see all the sharp edges here. So those would have shattered. And then all the points would have came out and sliced through his arm, right? I mean, it makes sense to me. What's up, Mustang? Yep. You're gonna have to pay for it. The decisions we make. Yep, they had a dog, GP. They had a German Shepherd. They have gotten rid of it since. And I don't know if this is factual information, but there were some reports that it was a violent dog, that it was known for being aggressive, so it kind of fits with that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, some of these do look like bite marks, like especially things like this. Like that looks like the smaller front teeth here. And then you have a few puncture marks, like these here. But the only thing about these marks here is they look like they actually went through. You see that? So in order for something like this to happen, you would see all of the teeth marks here, including two canines that would be equally spaced out, right? Because if you look closely here, you can see that this actually punctured through, which is more consistent with the tail light, or almost like a dagger, right? Penetrating the flesh. And then you have these markings here. Now this is his right arm. The dog would have had to been on the inside of his arm, biting down from the outside in, and then pulling away in this direction. I just don't see how that's possible. So these ones up here do not seem consistent with a dog bite. It almost looks like he got stabbed. Right? Whatever caused these two markings happen at the exact same time. Look, they're like the same shape. This one didn't happen, and then this one didn't happen later. So if you're to believe that these are both teeth, they would be equally, the distance between the two would be equal. But instead, you have this kind of fanning out away from this other one, but you can tell that they have the same shape as if they happened at the same time. So I don't think that this is a dog bite. Honestly, guys, I just don't. It matches up perfectly with where the elbow is. And also, if the elbow was bent, these all line up perfectly. So yes, this looks like a larger area than what you see here on the tail light. But if you were to bend your arm, right? So let's see what you guys are talking about in the chat. What's up, Funkarella? Not convinced it's dog bites. Me either. I don't think that they are. Right now I'm leading away. I'm leaning away from the whole dog bite thing. You know, I feel like this is just the best defense that they could come up with. You know, they laid down all the information. They said this is this is our best fight right here. You know, these look like dog bites. We could sell that to a jury. But when you start bringing in the experts and you start having people kind of comb through all this stuff, it begins clear. Like, for instance, this is a puncture wound, which means that the skin would have to be pinched and then broken through. So what did he do that twice and only catch it on one of the canines, maybe on the right side, and then bit back down and made the same kind of puncture? It's just not consistent, guys, at all. And what about these scraping wounds here? That wasn't caused by a tooth. That was caused by a sharp, flat edge, in my opinion, right? In my amateur opinion. And then also right here, you see some more scraping from a sharp edge. And the most violent part of the wound is up on the top, which was most likely caused by this right here. Something with 2 points on it. And it appears whatever was slicing him right here was separating the further it went down his arm. And to me, that's consistent with broken plastic, right? It's broken, but as you're moving, the pieces are moving. One piece of sharp plastic is going to the right, the other one's kind of going to the left a little. I mean, look at these. Look how sharp these edges are. I mean, these one look like prison shanks. What's going on, Mustang? There you go, Scott. You'll find somebody, and you'll be glad that you did. Julia says, it's in my opinion, it's hard to say for sure. I'm certainly no forensic specialist. My line of work, I do scan a lot of case files in my downtime. The smaller punctures look like could be, but not the slits. So you think these puncture marks right here? See, and the thing about these puncture marks right here, this is one object going through. When you have a dog bite, you're clamping down. You know, this doesn't look like a clamp. And if it was a clamp, it would just have a flat bottom away from whatever was puncturing the flesh. You know what I mean? So in order to puncture the skin, you'd have to clamp down, pinch it, puncture the skin. Where are the other teeth marks? You would see the smaller teeth in between here. And these wouldn't be so far apart here. Once again, this is consistent with the plastic moving, right? It's breaking and there's pressure being put against O'Keefe's arm. So as the car's backing into him, it hits the bone, breaks, and as the momentum continues backward against his arm, and as the broken pieces are moving, they're being wedged between his arm and the vehicle, and something's got to give, right? You got this powerful vehicle that's pressed up against human flesh, which isn't very strong at all, and then you have these moving plastic pieces that, as they're being pressed into him, are going to move outward and kind of do their own thing. To me, that's what this is consistent of, right? The distance between this marking and this marking is not equivalent to the distance between these two. But these are obviously puncture marks that have gone all the way through his skin like a dagger, almost like a broken piece of sharp plastic would be doing if it was pressed up against you, right? Creating pressure, smashing the skin together, and then popping through. Something's got to give. And that's what I'm seeing here. Same with these scraping marks. Look, that doesn't look like a dog tooth. That looks like the edge of one of these pieces of plastic here, in my opinion. GP says, yeah, they really don't look like bite marks. Well, at first glance, they kind of do. You're like, okay, you got these smaller ones over here. You have what appear to be puncture dots, like teeth. But that's not what I'm seeing here. Some people might say, well, these are the claws of the dog. So I've never seen a dog claw Freddy Krueger anybody, right? There might be some claw marks next to a bite, but I mean, we're not talking about Freddy Krueger here. This isn't some giant tiger. Dogs don't have claws like that. Could they scratch the hell out of you? Yeah. They're not going to dig into the flesh like that. And they're definitely not sharp like this. Whatever this was, as it was getting further away from O'Keefe's arm, you can kind of see how narrow it was, how sharp the points were. Teeth aren't going to do that. I think teeth on their way out are going to tear. Something more like this. Or like that. So it goes in on this end and on its way out, they're kind of hooked, right? It's not going to leave the sharp points here. So we know whatever cut John's arm went in this direction, from left to right, from the back of his arm to the front. What's up, Danny B? I think she did it accidentally. I agree. I think it was an accident. She knew that she had been drinking, and she may not have even realized it. So she may not even be sure it was her. And she can use that deniability, right, to help her through the process. No injuries from the lower jaw, so not a dog. Yes, and we talked about that during our last live stream on Karen Reed. There's no lower jaw bite marks. It's all upper jaw. Yeah, it's a good point, Funkarello. Yep. I like that Lexus SUV. We just got the new the Jeep Cherokees, the hybrid. pretty nice. But this one looks really nice too. What's up, Lone Wolf? Mustang, what's up? Well, he had a glass in his hand. So let's say he's holding the glass in his hand. In the right hand, his arm would be bent. And I should have done that on an illustration, is bent his arm like you were holding a glass, like at a 90-degree angle. You know how you kind of hold it outward? Might be very consistent with these wounds here. Wild man's mom. Multiple bites if the dog uses the claws for irregular strikes. The tail light didn't have a bomb in it. How can you expect the butt dials and destroyed phones and FBI investigation into the PD? See, we got to stay focused, guys. You don't want to start throwing all these pancakes on here. We're dealing with very specific things right now. His arm. That's it. What do the markings on the arm? Don't let yourself get distracted. Don't overlook these things. Right now, we're focused in on whether or not this is a dog bite, if it's consistent with a dog bite. In your opinion, we're not experts, but we have a brain and we're allowed to use it. We're not here to talk about, oh, well, what about this and what about, we can, but don't let yourself get distracted. Like, yes, there's this whole case, there's law enforcement officers, there's a possible cover up with absolutely no evidence. Could that have happened? Yes. But the only reason that any of that even matters is if he was attacked by a dog. If he wasn't attacked by a dog, none of that other stuff matters. If there was a cover up, doesn't matter. Because without this being a dog bite, there's no fight. Right? That's the narrative, is that he was in a fight at the home that he was found outside of, and that their dog began biting his arm for whatever reason. If we need to focus in on this before we go anywhere, right? Because if it's not a dog bite, then none of that other shit even matters. And this is the problem that we have. And this is something that I'm keeping myself in check about. Not overlooking things because they don't go with our narrative. Right? So we can go on to the corruption, the possible cover up, and what about this and what about that? None of that matters. If this isn't a dog bite, none of that other stuff matters. Because right now, the only way they can prove that he was in any kind of altercation or anything separate from what he's being accused of is if that's a dog bite. He got into a fight and their dog bit the shit out of him. And then they just throw him out, not thinking, hey, he's going to die in the cold weather. And I know there is some evidence to see, I think somebody was looking up how long does it take to freeze to death? There's all these other weird little things that people might be looking up because it's freezing outside. It may not have anything to do with John O'Keefe. That just might be something that people are looking up in the freezing temperature. Like how long does it take for you to freeze outside? Yeah, I'm not seeing any tearing. A lot of these are just punctures and scrapes. Like this is a high pressure scrape from something flat. Same with these wounds here. And this could be one flat item with some jagged edges. And whatever this is went right through. Gen X Jason, what up? Hey, we got a new person. Welcome in, Gen X Jason. Glad to have you. Usually when somebody is bit by a dog, the dog's tips its head away and the person moves too, like they yank. And I don't understand how the dog would be on the inside of his arm. If the dog was inside of his arm, there would be puncture marks underneath on the other side of his arm, and there's not. So we're looking for a jawless dog. Yeah, a dog. Let's go to red sauce. An extreme overbite. There we go. The suspect is a bucked tooth dog. Nails of a dog are sharp. No, they're not. Can they scratch? Yes. Not like a tiger or, a cat. A cat's claws can slice you. Dog's claws can't do that. Can they scratch the shit out of you? Yeah. They're not going to do that. This looks like a mountain lion did something to him. So, no dog's claws are going to do that. I don't care what you say. I'll never buy that. And they definitely ain't going through your skin like this. We dealing with Cujo? They're too clean and directional. Yeah, everything would be identical. Like even with this, you can kind of see whatever it was wanted to go in the same direction. See how it kind of curves right here, right at the end? But then they also wanted to go separate from each other. So whatever it was started out here puncturing the skin. Then as it got deeper and further away from O'Keefe's arm, it began to separate. In my opinion, just like pieces of plastic would that are being wedged between a car and a human arm. There's going to be a lot of movement, but something has to give, right? And in my opinion, the first thing to give is between a car and an arm is going to be the skin. Red sauce, that's hilarious. Buck tooth German Shepherd on the loose. I mean, the puncture marks to the left in the photo. Which ones? To the left in the photo. These ones here? Thought you were referring to these ones right here. And these also look like puncture marks. So whatever punctured completely through the skin here, it looks like two large items went through the skin here. And it doesn't look like a tooth. I hate to say it, guys, but I don't think that this is a dog bite. The more and more that we talk about it and the more and more I look at it, the more and more I'm convinced. Yeah, if he's some violent guy that needs to be thrown out into the snowstorm, you would expect him to be fighting and creating a ruckus. But here, this would have had to been done by a man who was on the ground, knocked out, and a dog trying to eat him. Doesn't make any sense, guys. And also, these bite marks would be on the inside of his arm, right? Being torn back away. That would leave puncture marks on the inside of his arm. They don't exist. Yep, get used to it, CJK. We're going to be super busy in 2025. Puncture wounds, who knew? Well, besides the doctor. Right? Did they find blood on the pieces of plastic? Not that I know of. I don't even know if they found DNA. But the thing about these kind of wounds, I don't know if you've ever been cut real bad or had some kind of a puncture wound. It doesn't bleed right away. I'm sure there might be some DNA there, you would think. But I know that quick wounds and sharp wounds and things like that, kind of like a paper cut. I don't know if you've ever cut yourself really bad. All you'll see is white flesh, and then it'll start to bleed. Like there's like this weird hesitation between the moment when you're cut clean and when it starts to bleed. Lone Wolf says, "Wouldn't that mean the plastic was broken before striking him?" No, like I said, it could happen at the same time. So that's what I think. This movement right here. See how they're close here? So it breaks, and as it breaks, it's also being smashed up against O'Keefe's arm. So you have the breaking of the tail light. You have the shards that are trying to find a place to go. Right? You got gravity. You have the vehicle pushing backwards against O'Keefe, and then you have these broken pieces of plastic that are looking for a place to go, and they're being um, sandwiched between his arm and this 2-ton SUV. So while they're breaking, they're separating, finding a place to go. Something's got to give. That's why you got these wounds, and you have him laying on the ground, and the scattering of these pieces. I mean, it makes total sense to me. Just looking at the wounds, even you can kind of see the movement of the. It tells a story. When a dog bites, they usually shake as well, which causes a lot of damage. Yeah, and they have kind of like barbed teeth. The canines are barbed. We're going to listen to the expert right now in a minute. I just wanted to get a quick conversation. We'll listen to her. It's a really long. We may not listen to all of it. It's like an hour long, so we'll probably stop and go. I just wanted to make sure we get the conversation going in case you guys get bored of this expert. But it's very interesting, the questioning. All right, Scott says, what about claws? Kind of like you got the claws left and the right, and then the teeth in the middle. Let's take a look at that. So you got claws here, claws there, and then all these deep wounds are the teeth. And then the right hand, the other claw over here. So my only concern is, how do you get the canines through this flesh without leaving markings on the other side? It's just not consistent. And then you have all these small teeth in between. So I don't know if it's possible if the dog is just catching the arm on one side. And these wounds here don't seem like they were caused by teeth. Like right here. These are the ones that aren't consistent. These ones right here, like the scraping. Like, to me, if these are consistent with claw marks, right? This kind of scraping. This is what I would expect from claw marks. Not this. But one thing I don't like about this as a claw mark, it doesn't like, you would have each one of these would have to be one of the claws, right? Actually, this looks like a puncture mark right here. This one appears to go through. So I don't know if we can include that with the clause. Oh, we got a super chat from Julia Burns. Do you have any photos of his hands that would show potential defense wounds if it were a dog or other attacker? If there's not wounds on the hands, I don't believe this was an attack of any kind. No, he only has some bruising up on his shoulder up here. You can kind of see it in this photograph. So where you would expect for the vehicle to hit him in the shoulder, he has a massive bruise. You can see some of it here. I think those are the only other wounds he has. Something to his head. So we'll get into that. Here's another one, kind of reversed. And you can kind of see how it enters and then pushes away. Like these all appear to have happened together, like at the exact same time. And if you were to bend your arm, these wounds would be going in the same direction as these ones. Which is consistent with, one sweeping motion. My only question is which one of these pieces could have made a puncture mark all the way through the arm, but were that narrow. Whatever this is very thin, like a dog tooth. So I'm not sure which one of these pieces could have done that. Would have to be one of something like this. Maybe even this. And these pieces look like dog teeth, right? These kind of look like canines. And then you have a bunch of smaller pieces too. Here's the upper arm. You can see the bruising a little bit better. All right, let's catch up on the chat, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to watch this testimony. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, nothing's ever that easy, right, GP? Miranda Lee says the jury didn't agree with you. Yeah, this is going to be a tough case to prove. You know, they didn't agree and they didn't disagree. Miranda, right? That's why they're being. That's why it was a mistrial. So it's not that they didn't agree; it's that they all didn't agree. I think this is the defense expert. She'll give her name. Yeah, thank you, Miranda. What's up, Kimmy? The third party culprit defense makes no sense. Yeah, that's what her defense team's going with, though. And it's a good argument because from the initial inspection of that photograph, you're like, man, that looks like a dog bite. And I guarantee you that's where they came up with that story. They're like, it looks like a dog bite. Well, let's make it a dog bite. I mean, they haven't had really any other evidence that there was some kind of scuffle. What's up, V? The teeth feel like a puncture, deep but clean. But if you have these top teeth puncturing, you're going to need the bottom ones to come through as well. Otherwise, what else is creating the pressure? Yes, Julia. Thank you for the email. Of course, always. Just cases in general. Kimmy says in the Dateline interview, Karen Reed, he didn't look mortally wounded. Okay, we'll learn a little bit about the case, V. So Reed is a 44-year-old financial analyst from Mansfield, Massachusetts, who is standing trial for allegedly hitting and killing her boyfriend, former Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with their SUV during a snowstorm, January of 2022. Reed pleaded not guilty to charges of second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence of alcohol, and leaving the scene of personal injury and death. Attorneys for Reed have argued that she is the victim of a cover-up by several people, including law enforcement. Right? It's always this grand conspiracy. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. Supporters for Reed gathered outside the courthouse during hearings throughout the months leading up to the trial, often wearing Free Karen Reed shirts and holding signs. They were required to remain at least 200 feet from the courthouse and buffer zone during the trial. The judge, in an effort to maintain an unbiased juror, for the website TB Daily News. Oh boy. Kearney was arrested on a host of charges involving alleged witness intimidation. Prosecutors allege that Reed and Kearney spoke by phone nearly 200 times in 2023 and accused her of sharing information about the case that was not yet public. Kearney denied any wrongdoing. What happened to John O'Keefe? O'Keefe was a Boston police officer who was dating Reed. The couple went out in Canton the night of January 28th, 2022 with a group of friends. Reed says she drove O'Keefe to the Canton home of Boston police officer Brian Albert. When O'Keefe did not return home and she couldn't reach him, Reed and two other women went out to look for him. The women found O'Keefe's body in a snowbank in the front of Albert's home around 6 a.m. on January 29. Prosecutors say an allegedly intoxicated Reed hit him with her SUV, while the defense argues O'Keefe went inside the home, was killed during a fight, and his body was brought outside and left in the snow. Judge Beverly Canone. Is it Canone? Canone? Norfolk County Superior Judge Beverly Canone has overseen all proceedings in the Karen Reed trial. Canone was appointed to the bench in 2014 by then Governor Deval Patrick. In July 2023, defense attorneys attempted to get Canone to recuse herself from the case. Prosecutors objected to the request. Canone determined the evidence presented in the defense claiming Canone could not be impartial was not credible. So that's the basic overview. Let's see here. Others involved in the Karen Reed trial. Trooper Michael Proctor was the lead investigator for the case. With Massachusetts State Police, defense attorneys allege that the federal investigation showed Proctor hid personal ties to people involved in Reed's case. In March, state police said they opened an internal investigation into a potential violation of department policy by Proctor. The trooper denied any wrongdoing. In a statement released by his attorney, Proctor remains on full duty during the investigation. On June 6th, Reed's attorney said they have been told that Proctor will take the stand as a witness for the prosecution after some uncertainty over when and how he could be called. So I guess the moral of the story, V, is that the house that he was found dead in their yard, they were all cops. You know, they know how to work the system. If they had to cover it up, they would know how. Is the argument. Hey, thanks, Boston. We got a super chat. Julia, you don't think it was an attack at all? Welcome in, Orion Home. Defense, I believe, said they think the dog attack happened in the basement when the fight broke out. Yeah, they're going to have an uphill battle. You know, first they got to prove that there was a fight. Then they got to prove that a whole group of people are lying, which is possible, and that a whole group of people conspired to throw him out of the house and just leave him out in the snow to die. Because if he died in the home, these cops, they're going to go out and get rid of the body. They're not going to throw it out in the snow. Be like, oh, look, an accident, even though there's dog bites all over the man's arm. So even though law enforcement would be smart enough and have the know-how to cover up a crime like this, they're also smart enough to know that there's other options, right? We just killed a man and our dog bit the shit out of his arm. We're not going to leave him laying out in the street. We got to get rid of the body. That's what the cops are going to say. They're not going to leave the main piece of evidence in their front yard knowing that his arm is chewed up. Doesn't make sense. And then have an entire family just keep quiet about it. Not make any sense. Okay, so let's hear what the expert says. We'll chat it up a little bit about it, and then we'll get out of here.
Russell, is to point out where in this article there is the rooting of the pattern and pattern method.
Can you guys hear that okay? Let me know if you cannot hear this.
Methodology, recognition methodology that you've been testifying to. Where is it located? And with the court's permission, I'd like you to read the specific sentences and paragraphs where that methodology is rooted in it.
Tell us first, because if it's a whole page, we're not going to do that.
That's a good point. Let's go to the lone wolf here. It says, well, if his arm was laying on something, something that was protecting the other side of his arm, the dog would have to be jawless. Yeah, you're right about that. So how would that be possible? You know, it just doesn't seem very likely, guys. Yes, I have seen the fangs on a German Shepherd. Yep, you're right.
It's not a whole case, Your Honor.
Let's just see where it is. Okay.
Good to see you, Brad.
Okay.
What's up, James?
On page 298.
No, Julia, it's me. My computer is completely out of memory. Like I had 1 terabyte on here and I've completely used it up. I tried to delete a few old videos to make a little bit of room and give it some processing space, but it's still acting up.
The second paragraph on the left-hand side.
Yeah, it's definitely me, guys. It's on my end.
Okay. Okay.
Your Honor, it's not going to be reading a whole page, it's just the portions of this. Is that acceptable
So
to
you
the
can read a
court?
portion of that paragraph, Doctor? Because
You got it, just
what
for
you're
you,
trying
V.
to do is convince me,
Just
right?
for
These are
you.
in evidence, so could you tell me where it is, please?
Okay, so left-hand
Right, first
column,
paragraph, second paragraph. Where do
second
you start?
paragraph. So it's part of the second, the third, and the fourth parts. So it says, dogs have some very specific dental and maxillofacial features. They have 42 teeth, 20 in the upper jaw, 22 in the lower jaw. Usually the mandibular dental arch is narrower and shorter than the maxillar, and the shape of the
Yeah, guys, the maxilla. Duh.
dental arches varies among the different breeds. There are natural gaps between the teeth that are attenuated or accentuated depending on the breed.
And then if you could skip to the next paragraph.
Let's go over here to V. Marie. So another girl was there when they found him deceased. Yes, let me play a quick video for you guys who aren't familiar with the case. So I should have a video where they actually discovered his body. Maybe this is it right here.
First officer arrives at a Canton home early that snowy morning.
When I arrived, I saw Miss Reed looked like she was giving CPR to him, and she had blood on her face.
Officer Stephen Seraph says he saw a man face up in the snow, later identified as John O'Keefe. Karen Reed and two other women were huddled over him. Seconds later, dash cam video shows jurors a frantic Reed.
Okay, so they were all out drinking, they were bar hopping, they were even taking drinks out of the bar from one bar to the other. They were all fucked up. At some point, Karen Reed apparently dropped O'Keefe off at this home and went on about her business. And when she didn't get a call from him, her and one of her friends went out looking for him. So she went back to the place where she dropped him off. And in this blizzard, out of everything, she notices him in the snow, right? It's pitch black outside. She's like, well, there he is, you know? And I'm not saying she didn't find him. I'm not saying that, she's guilty because I don't know. She may not even know. But the fact is that if she doesn't know, it is possible that she killed John O'Keefe, right? She's already admitted to drinking and driving. And the only reason she's keeping up this charade is because she doesn't want to get those manslaughter charges. That's why a lot of fucked up things happen in these cases are so crazy, because accidents happen. And when there's alcohol involved, kind of like the McCann case, these adults are over here drinking and then a kidnapping happens. Then you have the question about neglect. Whenever there's alcohol involved, it changes everything. So if she was just out driving and accidentally backed over him and it was an accident, we wouldn't even be talking about this case. But the fact that this accident happened and she's drinking alcohol, now it makes everything completely different. Makes everything difficult. People they start lying. They start trying to figure out ways to get out of it. They can't bring their loved one back, or they can't bring these individuals back. So their logic is, why do I need to go to jail? It was just an accident. I didn't mean to hurt him. I'm going to go to prison for this. So now I lose a loved one. I'm guilty about what I did. And now I'm going to prison. So they try to cut that part out. They try to cut the prison part out. So they come up with these elaborate stories and things like that.
Running back and forth in front of the police cruiser.
Miss Reed was visibly upset. She kept saying, this is all my fault. This is my fault. I did this. And she was very hysterical.
Seraph says O'Keefe had no pulse and was cold to the touch. But how he died differs greatly according to the prosecution and defense.
The relationship's up.
Prosecutors say Reed and O'Keefe were having problems. WCVB animation shows how prosecutors say Reed and O'Keefe arrived in her Lexus SUV at that house in Canton for an after-hours party, but then she left without him. The next morning, O'Keefe's body was found lying in a snowbank near a fire hydrant in the front corner of the yard. Prosecutors say as Reed drove away, she slammed her SUV into O'Keefe, going more than 24 miles an hour, leaving him for dead in a blizzard.
And they also found pieces of the tail light around the crime scene or around the area where O'Keefe's body was found. So, I mean, everything's consistent, right? You have her dropping him off at the home, leaving, and then right where she dropped him off, you have his alcoholic beverage on the ground, the glass, him laying in the snow dead. She has a broken taillight. Pieces of the taillight are on the ground near his body. His wounds are consistent with some type of sharp objects penetrating his arm. Right? But the argument is this. Hey, this happened at a cop's house filled with cops. And if they wanted to get away with it, they could. But the way I look at it is if I was a cop, shit, if I was just a cold-blooded person, a callous person, and I didn't really care about human life, and I beat the shit out of you and my dog attacked you and I was upset with you, so I threw you out of the home and then you died from the elements, right? From the beating, from the dog bites, and from the extreme cold. First of all, I'm not going to leave you out there, right? I'm not going to leave you there to be discovered. Think about it. Cops, they know too much about evidence to leave all of the evidence right there. Doesn't make sense to me.
Reed's defense insists O'Keefe went inside the house where he was killed during a fight and a dog attack.
Her car never struck John O'Keefe. She did not cause his death. And that means that somebody else did.
Outside the courthouse, Reed's loyal supporters continue to defend her.
She did not kill John O'Keefe, and the evidence is going to show.
See, what does this fucking idiot know? Like, at least we're smart enough to say, hey, look, we're not sure what happened. We're going to discuss the argument. But these motherfuckers are going all in. They're not investigators. They haven't even looked at the information. And they're just like, oh, she's innocent. Crazy. I don't understand it.
That she was framed.
Any one of us could be Karen Reed. It's that simple.
See, it's another, we're all Richard Allen. No, we're not. We're not all drunk people that drive around drunk, bar hopping, and then when something bad happens, make up stories, right? So that we don't go to jail or go to prison.
Case that has divided Canton, now about to play out in front of a national audience. It is quiet at this hour, but there are a lot of media outlets here. Everything from Court TV, which is planned.
All right, let's get back to the expert.
Paragraph, because we want to follow the court's direction not to read everything, just trying to focus on the key aspects. Is there something in the next paragraph that also supports it?
Okay, yes.
Oh, fuck that, V.
The above features attribute to the characteristics of dog bites.
Can you tell us what that sentence means? And does that sentence have any relation to the concept of pattern recognition?
Yes, it does.
Explain how.
Okay. Well, so they're talking, well, first of all, the previous paragraph was talking about the dentition.
I think it's manslaughter and something else. But I think manslaughter is the main charge. So she'll do some real time no matter what if she's convicted. I think they'll have some trouble convicting her, but I don't know. I mean, it just, everything looks consistent. And I just don't see cops. They're like, hey, instead of getting rid of John O'Keefe and cleaning up, you know, all of the evidence and the DNA and all of that stuff, we'll just completely get rid of the body. Why would a cop beat a man to death, allow his dog to maul his arm, and then he's going to leave the victim, this dead person, who is a victim of now, you know, manslaughter, or even possibly second-degree murder right there in your yard. So even though cops, I think, are capable of, you know, putting the frame job on somebody, like what they're trying to say happened in Karen Reed's case, I just don't see that happening. Why would you do that? Why would you go through all that trouble when all you would have to do is get rid of the body, right? You get rid of the body. You've already committed murder, so it's not like you're crossing some kind of line that you haven't already crossed. You're already a murderer. Now you're just trying to cover it up. So they come up with the idea, this is how we're going to cover up the murder. We're going to throw him in the yard. We're going to go break Karen's tail light, and then we're going to sprinkle all of the tail light pieces around O'Keefe's body, and we'll make it look like, where is the logic to say, hey, I'm going to make it seem like broken tail light pieces caused these bite marks? I don't see a cop coming up with this plan. It doesn't make any sense. This is more like something that a defense attorney would come up with. Just my opinion.
Of the dogs, and how there's some variation in the dentition. And then this next sentence says the above features attribute to or relate to or are relevant to the characteristics of what the dog bites would look like.
And then as you continue on in that paragraph, again, not reading every sentence, but is there another part of the paragraph that continues over on to the next page?
Yeah, V's is asking, so they claim he never made it inside the house. She's saying, yeah, I dropped him off and he went inside. That was it. And I went out and went on about my business. They're saying he never came in.
That also supports your testimony that this is talking about pattern recognition methodology.
Yes. So it goes on to say that the puncture wound, a round hole, is made by the canine tooth of either the upper or lower jaw on one side that serves as an anchorage, while the other teeth cut into the flesh, causing stretch lacerations in the process of biting, shaking, and tearing. This should be considered pathognomonic for dog bites.
There's that word.
Especially when accompanied by tissue defects and claw marks.
Pathognomonic.
The latter being narrow, superficial, linear abrasions arranged parallel to each other, 4 or 5 in number, and usually found in the vicinity of the bite.
Here's a good comment by Orion Home. No plastic fragments in any wound. Well, there were plastic fragments in his clothing, right? So the officers would have had to been smart enough to take parts of that plastic and embed it into his hoodie that he was wearing, into the sleeve where supposedly the impact happened. He had fragments of plastic embedded into his hoodie, not into the wounds, but into the fabric. But he's right. No dog DNA. Also, no injuries to the chest, abdomen, or extremities consistent with collision of a vehicle. Well, I mean, he had the markings on his arm where he would have been hit, and then he had something to the head. To me, that's consistent, right? You get hit in the arm, then your head after impact.
This pattern allows differential diagnosis with bites of other animals which are not accompanied by pulling and shaking, nor by the usage of the prominent canines, and with stab wounds caused by sharp instruments.
Does what you just read establish the pattern and the pattern recognition methodology for dog bites?
Yes, Gwen Garnett says they did find pig DNA, but they're assuming that it was from something that was eaten or cooked. You eat bacon, you're going to have pig DNA on you.
Objection, why?
You know, I just threw some ribs in the oven, so I'm sure I might have some kind of animal DNA somewhere on my hands.
The
Or
objection is
splashed
to
on
state
me
ask the
somewhere.
question differently.
What do you conclude from the language you just read with regard to patterns and pattern recognition methodology?
Well, I conclude that patterns are important, and they are what I call highly representative, but they call pathognomonic, meaning that there is nothing else that causes those.
Let's focus on the
Pathognomonic.
word, people pronounce it differently,
Yeah.
pathognomonic. What does pathognomonic mean in medicine?
Pathognomonic, to me, I believe it means that you can make a diagnosis based on these factors that are present to the exclusion of any other diagnosis because they are so specific.
So we talked about on your direct, and it was raised on cross, the concept of a differential diagnosis, right?
Yes.
When you have pathognomonic features, is it required to even have a differential diagnosis?
Not really,
Why?
because the pathognomonic features mean that you have the entity or the condition that that is explained.
Does pathognomonic mean that the features themselves rule out other possibilities?
Yes, that's what I believe it means.
There you go, Gwen.
And is that how you interpret what the author
Gwenine?
is saying in this article?
Yes.
Please proceed lastly to the next two paragraphs, and then we can move on to the next study, I believe.
In conclusion, to identify a lesion as a dog bite wound, it should have ragged and irregular wound edges, show multiple parallel linear scratches or drying scuff abrasions, include a puncture wound and sometimes an avulsion with irregular borders resembling a dental arch print.
And could you please, as the last paragraph we'll focus on, read what you consider important in the next paragraph?
The shape of dog bite wounds depends on the size and breed of the dog and will differ whether or not the full dentition was used to produce them.
Let's stop there. What does it mean to you when the author says, and will differ whether or not the full dentition was used to produce them?
So what that means is that if the bite does not include the full, let me back up. What it means is the appearance of the bite will vary depending on whether or not all of the teeth impacted the skin or just some of the teeth impacted the skin.
Please read the next sentence.
Only in ideal circumstances will a complete impression of all frontal teeth be found, and often only a prominent canine impression can be seen.
Is what you just read relevant at all to what you analyzed with regard to the wounds of the decedent in this case?
Very relevant.
How?
Because many of those wounds on Mr. O'Keefe's arm were only partial bites. They did not have the complete dentition.
Do you recall Mr. Brennan saying various times that you have no support for your pattern recognition methodology?
Yes.
Is this support for your pattern recognition methodology?
Yes.
Is it direct support for the pattern recognition methodology you have applied in this case?
Yes.
Is there another article? You mentioned two. You mentioned Demunic and Pollock.
Are you guys watching the judge? She's just like like this hearing is for her, right? This hearing is so the judge can allow certain things in or out. There's no jury here. Everything that's being presented is being presented to the judge. And she just seems bored.
So let's turn
She's
to,
like-
and Your Honor, this will be the second and last article.
She's like texting and shit.
Please turn to Exhibit 34. And is this
fucking
the
vodka, man.
Pollak study that you have mentioned multiple times in your testimony and that's in your report?
Yes.
Please, like we just did with the Munich
She's like-
article, please identify the portions of this study that support, you've testified, support your pattern recognition methodology.
Okay.
And let's
Well,
do
start in the
a
beginning.
seriatim from the beginning.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'll do it
please.
from the beginning. So,
And don't worry, guys. The video seems glitchy, but it's on my end. It's a bad recording of the video. Well, it was glitchy when I recorded it.
the dog's front, so the first paragraph here.
Okay, the summary?
Yeah, this says summary, yes, summary. In the absence of her parents, a girl of 4 months was killed by a 2-year-old male Rottweiler dog belonging to the same family. The dog's front teeth marks of individual circular or scratch-like abrasions, as well as slit-like skin severances of the skin, arranged in curved lines. There seems to be a word or two missing.
No, you missed a word. That's
I
okay.
did.
That's
Yes.
okay, go ahead.
Okay. The pattern of skin lesions largely corresponded to the anatomy of the dog's set of teeth.
Let's stop there. How does the sentence you just read, what's the key component of that sentence that supports your pattern recognition methodology?
That sentence, the pattern of skin lesions.
Now let's go down to the keywords. Is there anything in the keywords that supports and roots your opinion that you've given several times that there's in dog bite wounds on humans, there's a pattern?
Yes, so there's about five or so keywords. One of them is injury pattern.
Why is there a section in many medical studies of key words?
So when you're researching, you can find the articles quickly.
And is there any importance to the use of key words when there is a study published?
Well, yes, because it's a key concept of the paper.
Please proceed to and I know it may take a little bit of time and with the court's permission, to the next section of this article that supports your opinion that there is a pattern to dog bite wounds on humans and that there's a pattern recognition methodology used to discern them.
Well, I think the next significant section would be 3.2,
And what is the title of that section?
morphology of dog bite injuries.
What does morphology mean in the medical community?
Basically means form.
And could it mean something in addition to form?
Form, pattern, appearance, yes.
So with regard to morphology section, please identify the sections, the parts of the article under this section that you believe that you have concluded support your opinion of both the existence of patterns and a pattern recognition methodology with respect to dog-inflicted wounds.
Well, I go to the second paragraph.
Please read that.
Okay. The bite mark on the skin is ideally a complete and congruent imprint of the front dental arch. Sometimes only the protruding canine teeth are imprinted. If the shorter incisors also leave an impression, smaller skin lesions, round pressure marks, or streaky glide marks can be found between the impact points of the canines.
We didn't see that.
In practice, it is hardly expected that all 6 incisors of a jaw will act uniformly. A gap in the injury pattern can have several causes: oblique biting, curvature of the body surface, interposition of textiles.
What does that mean? I'm going to stop you. What is interposition of textiles in layperson speak, and how, if at all, is that relevant to this case?
It's clothing overlying the area that was bitten.
And was there clothing overlying the bite mark wounds of the deceased?
Yes,
And what clothing specifically was that?
it was a hoodie type sweater.
Please continue reading.
Okay, interposition of textiles, different tooth lengths, tooth loss, form and positional anomalies of the teeth.
And keep reading, please.
So yeah, don't forget the bites went through his hoodie. So they had to go through the fabric of his hoodie and then make those puncture marks, which look clean and sharp, in my opinion.
On the next page,
Yes.
the spectrum of possible injury forms is extremely diverse. Depending on the type and intensity of local tissue damage, skin contusions with epithelial loss, linear abrasions, tears and/or crush wounds, as well as puncture-like lesions can be distinguished.
Thank you. So do these studies
Thanks, Mustang.
directly or indirectly support your opinions in this case that there's both a pattern to dog bite wounds on humans and that there is a pattern recognition methodology to discern them?
They do.
And is it direct or indirect support, these studies?
I believe this is direct.
And do you believe it's robust, these studies, or do you believe there's equivocation with regard to pathognomonic features?
No, I think it's robust, and these articles are cited elsewhere.
And are these articles, particularly the DeMunic article, is the citation ubiquitous in the medical literature, or is it sporadic? Are there a lot of citations to DeMunic in the medical literature, or are there only a few?
There are quite a few.
Okay. So we're gonna cut that short. So she's basically saying that it's a dog bite and you can't argue that away. But I just don't see that. And she's also telling you that there's going to be a way to prove that in a court of law. That if she's given the opportunity, she can prove through a scientific method that these are dog bites. You know, they're not flush and they're not full on dog bites, but they're partial. And she's going to be able to prove it. And there's going to be no way to argue against it. I just don't believe that. Okay, so the next day, this is how they found her vehicle. Okay. So you have to believe that law enforcement officers who were involved in a cover-up, instead of getting rid of the body, they go and find Karen's vehicle. They bust out the taillight. They gather up those pieces of taillight, and they dump John's body in the snow, and they sprinkle these shattered pieces of plastic near his body. Does that seem like a good idea? When you can just say he never showed up here, what's easier to explain? We're going to create a fake car accident. We're going to bust the tail light. You know, these are all actions that could be witnessed. You know, these are all crimes, really. These are all activities of a crime, where that could lead to more witnesses. It could lead to more evidence of a cover up. Why would a seasoned professional police officer leave a dead body in his own yard with what appears to be obvious? Oh, hold on. You know, they're not going to leave a dead body in their yard with obvious dog bites and go and get pieces of plastic and sprinkle them around to create this narrative. That doesn't make any sense, guys. What makes more sense? The person who was out drunk as a skunk, who dropped off John O'Keefe, who has the broken taillight, right? I mean, it makes sense to me. But then you have some folks that are going to say, well, that's what a cover up is supposed to do. It's supposed to make you think that. That's part of the cover up. But the common sense tells me this man just died in my home. My dog just tore his arm up. There's evidence everywhere. I need to get rid of this body. I'm not going to go dump it in my front yard. Like, come on, guys. What kind of cover up is that? You guys, it's brilliant. We'll leave the body in the front yard. We'll sprinkle some plastic around. We'll bust out Karen Reed's taillight. Slam dunk, guys. I just don't see it. I don't think a jury's going to buy that. I think what most likely happened is Karen dropped off John, was so drunk she didn't even realize it. She didn't even realize it. Scott says, getting rid of the body, how would they explain his missing body? It's not up to them to explain it. They wouldn't need to explain it. He never showed up. Right? Karen Reed dropped him off in front of the home. He never knocked on our door. So whatever happened to him, it happened to him, you know, in the front. And then Karen would still be under investigation. What did you do to John? You're the last person to see him. Well, I dropped him off here. Nobody dropped him off here. Right? So there is no story. So instead, they get the drop off, right? Oh, he dropped John off here. And then you have all this other crap. You know, I just don't see a cop who knows the way that these trials are operating, the way that prosecutors and defense attorneys operate. I just don't see them saying, hey, I got the best idea. And not only that, there's like probably 6 people who are involved in the conspiracy. People who aren't cops, wives of cops, children of cops, who have to keep their mouths shut. So you're coming up with this conspiracy and this plan in front of all of these people. I don't buy it. I do not buy it. Funkarella says, but don't forget she was mad. Remember the voicemail she left? She was mad about something. I mean, she could have been mad, but I think you don't have to be. You know, I don't think that she targeted him. I think that it was an accident, and I think that she doesn't want to go to prison for it. You know? And look how sharp this is. So here's your dog teeth. And pieces like this are really consistent with some of those wounds. Right here. You see this piece right here? I bet you if you took this piece, it would match up perfectly. Here, let's try something. Bear with me, guys. I'm doing something. You know, I feel like something like along these lines created this wound here. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this wound right here is definitely consistent with this piece. Especially with the deep part on the end. You see this right here? But who knows? Yeah, I definitely think this was an accident, Scott. I mean, maybe she got mad during the moment. When you're drunk like that, you know, you make mistakes. That's why you're not supposed to be doing anything professional while you're drinking, because you're sloppy. Your inhibitions are down. If you get angry, you might fly off the handle. People who are never violent become violent when they've been drinking. You know, she could have really had a moment where she gunned it and tried to run his ass over. I just don't think that that's what happened. I think that this was an accident. I think that she panicked. She came to a fork in the road and said, I can be honest. And at that point, there will be nothing that she could do. It's a manslaughter charge right off the bat. There's no argument about it. You were drinking, you killed this man. And then you also left him in the snow to die, whether you knew it or not. That's what happened. He could have suffered. But I don't think it was intentional. I think this was a, hey, I'm sorry for what I did. There's no bringing him back. No reason that I should go to prison for this. But the truth is, when you're out drinking and driving and you hurt somebody, that's exactly what should happen to you. You should go to prison. You shouldn't be drinking and driving. All right, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you guys want to get a hold of me about this case for whatever reason, share your thoughts. sleuthintuition@gmail.com is where you can reach me. Big shout out to all of you who continue to donate to my channel. Couldn't do this without you. 100% crowdfunded. You can send to the Cash App. You can send to the Venmo, to the Zelle. You can consider becoming a member. If you want to go share the video, like the videos, go watch some of my older videos. All those types of things help. But the bottom line is that I can't do this without you guys. We are crowdfunded, and it means a lot to me, all of you who have been supporting the channel. So big shout out to you. All of the folks have stuck by me this long. Shout out to you, all of my longtime members. Today's sponsors, Julia Burns, Boston Christian, and all of you guys. And we will be having a members only tomorrow. It might be early. I don't know. I want to make sure that everybody can be part of it. So maybe it'll be like a noon time. We can get our European sleuth crew members involved. I just don't want to leave anybody out. We have a lot of folks who tune into the channel from overseas. and I really appreciate them as well. So I don't want to leave you guys out. But on that note, enjoy the rest of your day, and I appreciate all of you. So take care, and let me know what you thought about today's live stream. Take care.